What's up, everyone? Today we're gonna have a little bit of a different episode. We are going on a couple different locations. Right now we're here at a place called the Demon Tree. If you stay tuned, you'll hear some stories from a special guest. My name's Darren. I'm with Lakeshore Paranormal.
And of course, I'm Allie from Sweet Pea 4-Leaf Clover. Okay, so first of all, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself,
Scott Hageman. I grew up in Allegan. Spent my summers pretty much from the day school got out till Labor Day weekend camping with my family out in Allegan Forest. Mostly at Pine Point Campground that's not there anymore, and a few other campgrounds that aren't there anymore, like the Berry Ranch. And growing up as a kid, we'd sit around the fire at night and listen to the grown-ups tell the stories that they heard or experienced through the years. And the stories of the Yellow Motel and Melonheads and Hangman's Point, the Demon Tree, Satan's Tomb, and like I mentioned before, I'm the type of person, if you tell me a story, I can take it as a story. Okay, that was entertainment. As a 8, 9, 10, 13-year-old kid, entertainment. But when you tell a story and want me to believe it, now that's a different animal right there. That means I have to go out there and either find out if it's true or if it's not true. So a lot of nights, I spent sleeping until the grown-ups went to bed, and then I'd wake up, and whoever wanted to join me would join me, but we would set out on foot to find these locations. And that's pretty much who I am.
Awesome. So what got you started with this whole thing that you're doing?
Well, what got me started is growing, the camping as a kid out in Allegan Forest, and how my grandfather and my dad and my uncles really, they loved it. It was a part of who they were, from raccoon hunting with coon dogs and deer season and all that. We learned all the nooks and crannies of the forest, and my grandmother, who grew up in a little place called Chicora, just south of Allegan Forest, she had 17 siblings. And they knew all the areas. And one of the areas that really fascinated me was the nudist colony. That they called it Camp Sunshine, I think was the name of it. And it was back in the 1920s, and the Kellogg brothers used to come up and visit the nudist colony. Well, it got busted one time, and they shut it down, and there was a big thing in the newspapers, and if you Google it, you can kind of research it. But they were experimenting with the afterlife there. And when I heard the story of the nudist colony, I had to go find it. And I forgot what the question was now.
Oh, I've been there. That's all right.
No, what got you started?
Just hearing the stories around the campfire, and I had to know, and when you hear these stories, it takes on a historical meaning when you go out there and actually see what they were telling you in the story. To have them, to hear a story about a German prisoner of war camp as a kid in the 1960s and 70s, you hear the story about Germans, and all of a sudden, oh my God, and to grab your flashlight and go trucking through the woods, and all of a sudden you start seeing these foundations where barracks used to be. That really made every story I heard because that was one of the first stories I ever heard. I was probably 5, 6 years old, and all the stories they weren't just stories anymore. They were my roadmap to go find out the truth. You know, and you know, one of the, you know, like I say, you know, Satan's tomb was an eye opener for you. I mean, that is when I really believed, because when my dad grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "I told you to never come here," and he pulls me up and I see this concrete tomb out, which took me 2 hours to find in the middle of the darkness, and there it was, no roads leading to it. You had to go some pretty thick brush to find this thing, and up a steep hill, and there it was. And so, you know, you start hearing, reflecting back on all these stories you hear as a child, and as an adult, you know, you didn't have Google back then, so you had to either read about it in books, or you listen to the people that experienced it firsthand. So that's kind of how I got going on what I'm going.
Oh, that sounds very interesting on your behalf. Like,
well, the Satan's tomb was intense, and so was the demon tree. Okay. Yeah, I mean, to hear the story of Joseph, the prisoner out at the POW camp, German soldier. And like I say, there was a Joseph MEF that was on the records. I don't know if it's the same Joseph or not, but he just wanted to go. He wasn't all about Hitler. He didn't want to fight the war to begin with. He just wanted to go home to his wife and family. Right. You know, and here he is in a foreign land, incarcerated, because he was forced to do something he didn't want to do to begin with. So he tries to escape, to go home. Right. Well, he tried escaping on a Michigan blizzard, you know, 0 degrees, whiteout conditions. He didn't know where he was at. And he's going through Allegan Forest, and he falls into the river.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, he gets out of the river. He's turning to icicle, you know, a block of ice basically. He knew he had to get shelter. And he found the demon tree. And like I mentioned before, this tree, it's like 5 trees converged and it grew up, and in the center is this throne, you know. And Joseph climbed into the throne, and he shouldn't have. You know, whether he froze to death, I don't know, but the demon tree kind of explains it for me. Wow. In morel mushroom hunters found him in the spring. And legend has it that you go there and you say, it's just like, you know, I mentioned, you know, the Bloody Mary thing. You go there and say his name 3 times and you're forever haunted. You can say his name 3 times now, Joseph, Joseph, Joseph. Nothing's going to happen. You go to the demon tree and sit in it, say his name 3 times.
Forget it, right?
I'm not going there.
Right.
You know, and it's really crazy, and I've got some of the mirrors in the museum from it. You go to this tree and you'll see busted mirrors all around it. You know, so through the years the story has been told, you know, and people have gone out there with mirrors. You know, the story I heard never said you had to have a mirror. Right. You just go there and sit in it and say his name 3 times. Well, they got, you know, the Bloody Mary thing mixed up where, you know, you say it 3 times, you have to have a mirror. But yeah, that's a pretty intense story. Wow. And once you see the tree, sit in it.
Maybe I'll say his name.
Well, yeah.
I mean, see if it really happened.
Yeah.
Now, for the last one, because you have a lot of experience in the forest of Allegan, what would be your message to anyone that goes out there? Now, I know sometimes certain areas can be cursed. due to Native American, obviously, you know, me being part Indian, I know that people bring offerings. Sometimes even the offerings don't always work, obviously, depending on the spirit itself, right? So what would be your message to anybody, whether it's a paranormal investigator, whether it's a cryptologist trying to go out there, or whether it's just a, you know, somebody that just loves, you know, going out there to see these things? What would be your message to them? Like,
well, if you're really gonna dig into it, you know, don't go out there expecting you're gonna walk down a nice clear or pathway or trail or hiking trail. You're gonna go from a paved road to a dirt road, sometimes to a 2-tracker, to a footpath, off the footpath. So dress accordingly. You know, wear hiking boots, bug repellent, long pants, even if it's 90 degrees, because you know you're gonna walk through some prickers and poison ivy and all that good stuff. You know, I'm not an overly religious person, but I do believe in God, and a lot of the things I seen out there, the only reason I had the guts to see them is because of Luke 10:19. For with God has granted me the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and overcome the power of the enemy.
gotcha.
I'm not saying these things are out to kill you,
Right.
but you know, they're not my buddies either.
Right.
And man, as a kid, sometimes I was lucky enough to have a flashlight, but if I didn't have one, it wasn't gonna stop me. I just waited for a moonlit night. But you start running through these woods at night, you know, away from camp. Thank God, no. I mean, back then we didn't have cell phones, so you know, and there actually did happen quite a few times where I'd see flashlights running through the woods, and they were like search partying me again. You know, it wasn't the first time, and when my uncles and dad found me at the demon tree, or not the demon tree, but Satan's tomb, yeah, they were up all night looking for me because it was daylight when they finally found me laying there. But it's for a kid, that's scary.
Yeah.
But I always remembered Luke 10:19. God's granted me the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and overcome the power of evil.
That's pretty cool. Well, thank you for the message out there. Thank you so much for the whole interview. It was an honor to be here, very honor, and I think that it's it's real exciting that you're doing this. I know there's a lot of people that probably want answers out in the woods, because I know I'm not the only. I mean, there's people around my area where, you know, here in the by the Allegan area, where a lot of people want to know what's out there. You know, there's things out there, you know, and there's more that maybe we may not even know of. So, but yeah, we really do appreciate your interview and being you know, cooperative with us. Thank you so much for everything, and we wish you the best of luck when it comes to all this, because
we still
this
recording?
is incredibly awesome.
Yeah.
This is incredibly awesome.
That's
like,
all right.
It's awesome. So.
Well, thank you. And like I mentioned before, I don't want people to be disappointed. Because this isn't a historical. I've got some mirror from the demon tree. Years ago, probably back in the 80s. Now, I'm not sure if it was before, after the Yellow Motel had burnt down, but not far from the Yellow Motel in the woods, I found a glass window, and I grabbed it. You know, so it was on the property of the Yellow Motel, so I'm thinking at one time it was possibly in the Yellow Motel. I'm not going to say it's from the Yellow Motel, but it's from the property.
Right.
You know, and that's in the museum. But this isn't. I don't have some crazy artifacts or anything like that. It's about the story. Mm-hmm. You know, listen to the stories. Get the GPS coordinates that are in the museum. Go make your own story. Mm-hmm. Head out to the forest. You know, this isn't a one-night thing. It really isn't. You know, I've been doing the Melonhead games for 5 years now, and I do 5 stories per year. So I've done 20 stories so far, and that's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Wow.
You know, I spent my, you know, like I say, my childhood, pretty much the late 60s, all the 70s, and part of the 80s. 3 months out of the year, we camped in Allegan Forest because my family loved it. I heard stories every night. I haven't shared this, I mean, I shared it in the Melonheads. I haven't mentioned it with anything else. But what was it, the late 60s? That Mothman was spotted at, what was it, Point Pleasant, West Virginia? And you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the bridge failed. Well, within 6 months of that same year, Mothman was spotted on a river that goes between China and Russia. And Mothman was there for like 3 or 4 months. And the Russians thought it was the Chinese with some kind of new military weapon, and the Chinese thought it was the Russians. But after they kept looking at the photographs and talking to people that seen this thing, it was the exact same creature that was spotted in West Virginia.
Wow.
There's a place out in the Allegan Forest, I shit you not, that we seen this thing. We called it Creature Island. And I think I shared that story the 3rd year of the Melonhead games. And what really shocked me is once I shared that story with people, so many other people came forward during this time period that I seen them, that claim they've seen them too. So, you know, to me that was just like, all right, you know, I wasn't some delusional 11-year-old kid back in, you know, 1974 or whatever, running through the woods singing Afternoon Delight, you know what I mean? I mean, I seen a freaking creature that was about 7-8 feet tall, looked like it had angel wings, all black and beady red eyes. And if you go out to Creature Island, and it's an island, you go out there at night and just watch the trees, you might be convinced.
Wow. Wow.
All right.
Well, thank you so much
thanks
for the
again.
stories. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Very.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting.
Yeah.